There we go. Okay. So today is November 19th, 2011.
Yes.
And thank you, first of all, thank you very much for doing this interview for history so that people can know. And could you tell us your name?
John Smeltzer.
John Smeltzer. And what is your birth date?
My birth date is November 26th, 1946. I just do everything numerically now.
Happy birthday, it's almost your
All
birthday.
right, yeah, it's almost the big 6'5".
We're here at your home in Palmdale, California. And my name is Elaine Griffith, and I'm interviewing John. And John, how do you know me?
I know you through church affiliations.
Yeah.
And also through the Rowan project that you set up to help the people in Moanga, Uganda.
Thank you very much, John. You're a very good servant in our church. Thank you for that service too. Let's see. Could you tell us which war you served in and the branch that you served in, the branch of the military?
I served in the Vietnam conflict, and I was in the United States Marine Corps.
Okay. Were you enlisted or commissioned?
I was enlisted. They wanted to commission me if I re-enlisted, but I turned it down. I was guaranteed to rank at first lieutenant.
Nice.
And I guess if we could say I was meritoriously commissioned a colonel in the United States Marine Corps in the battleship Texas if Grady C. Terry did what he said he was going to do.
Oh, who was that? Grady C. Terry.
Grady C. Terry was an admiral in the United States Navy. He was southwest of Hawaii on December 7th, 1941, when the Japanese hit the island. He was on patrol duty on the battleship Texas. That was his flagship.
Okay. Now, how was it when you were enlisted? At the times, what year was it? Was it 1969? You said.
1965.
1965. You were enlisted.
I enlisted in 1965.
How'd that happen?
It happened by. Well, it was an economic problem, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I couldn't get a job.
Our modern generation.
I couldn't get a job anywhere because no one would touch me, because the Marines had already landed over in Vietnam, or were thinking about landing over there, but they didn't actually land until March of '65, and I didn't get there until January of '66. But I couldn't get hired at no place would take me. I mean, they would just flat out tell me, you are draft eligible, and they're going to get you, and we don't want to pay for you, your time in service with our company, so we won't hire you. I mean, it was just that blatant.
Wow.
Those were before the days of being politically correct.
Yeah.
They didn't have to lie to me. They told me straight out.
That's an interesting problem to have. We don't have that problem today.
No, they won't tell you straight out. They won't tell you the truth.
So, and did you decide on the Marine Corps for any reason?
Yes, I did. I decided on the Marine Corps. Well, I'd have to back up and relate to a little bit of personal history on that. My stepfather was a classic alcoholic, and he was in the Marine Corps, but he beat me with whips and stuff like that. I was terribly abused in the days when children should be seen and not heard. My father, my natural father, was a first sergeant in World War II and went over with MacArthur to the Philippines. He was in an anti-aircraft battery. So,
wow.
But my father never did things to me that my stepfather did, even though he drank too, but he drank socially instead of instead of just trying to get himself drunk.
Yeah. So did he encourage you to go into the Marine Corps, or you just
No,
voluntarily?
he put the question to me one day after I came home frustrated and depressed, and I talked to him at the kitchen table, and I said, you know, while he was stirring his coffee, I said, Dad, I just don't know what to do. I've tried everybody and nobody wants me. No one will take me on for a job.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked up from his coffee, and he just looked back down, and he says, well, have you considered joining the service? And he just left it at that.
Yeah. And how old were you at then?
I was 18, probably 18 and a half.
Yeah. Well, was it quite a surprise when you entered the Marine Corps, or was it what you expected?
I don't think anybody can prepare you for boot camp. I mean, boy, we just got we didn't even get off the bus. In fact, I got rode down there in a USMC government car because I had helped the recruiter recruit more Marines, and so he rode down all the way down to camp to San Diego with me on MCRD San Diego in the car, and
you were a leader even
and
back
then I had to get on the bus and sit in the first available seat because the DIs were about to enter the bus, and believe me, that is one thing that is an eye-opening experience. You just knew you died and went to hell.
Oh, what are DIs, just for?
Drill instructors.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you were a leader even back then. You're a leader now. You're a union leader. And
yes.
You're a leader in our church.
Yeah. It just follows me around. It's something that I can't escape.
So there you were helping the recruiter, and
yeah.
So you were in San Diego.
Yes.
How long did it take for boot camp?
Boot camp was about 12, 13 weeks at that time.
What did you learn?
What I learned was how to kill people with extreme prejudice, and but no, in reality, we learned a lot of history. Believe it or not, we learned Marine Corps history. They took us back into 1775, and started from there and worked forward on the history of the Marine Corps. And we learned weapons, how to break them down, how to clean them, how to field strip them, how to detail strip them. We learned personal combat, hand to hand. We learned how to run. We had obstacle courses of various kinds that we had to manipulate on. In fact, one of the funniest things was one of the obstacle courses that we had to go on. I being one of the smallest, the second to the smallest Marine, I was in the last file. I was the last one to go across the 6-foot rope swing across the water, and then we had to go under concertina wire, and then across a 6-foot ditch, and then up an incline ladder, and then over some knotted ropes, and then some hand-to-hand monkey bars things, and then we climbed another thing, and then we got up on an engineer's bridge, which amounts to 3 cables, and we went across that, and then we had to go across another apparatus of some kind, and we came out on an incline rope, which we had to come down hand over hand. And the drill instructors noticed, took exception to the fact that that's the phone.
Yeah.
Took exception to the fact that I was the last one to start, and I was one of the first ones to. I was usually the first one to finish. And they said, and of course the question came up is, well, how could he do that? That's impossible. How can he pass 76 men? You know.
Wow.
And so anyway, they put a drill instructor on me and followed me through the thing. The next day, we went through the same course, and he followed me through there, and I came and I finished, and I'm standing there all by myself, you know, and the platoon sergeant came up and asked the drill instructor, he says, well, what happened? And he says, well, sir, you're not going to believe this, but he passed everyone up.
Well, you are built like a tank, so you know. Did you find that you got stronger during the boot camp process then?
Oh yeah, I went in there probably weighing 125 pounds, and that was carrying 2 6-packs of Coke with me. You know, I was skinny as a rail, no hips, no chest, no nothing.
How much did you weigh when you got out?
156 pounds, and it was all muscle.
Wow. Of course,
I
we
mean,
know that changed
they
later.
put this chest on me and everything else that I can't lose. Not the Dunlap, but that's the tire.
Well, let's skip forward to Vietnam.
Fast forward.
Yeah, fast forward. How did you get there, and what did you think when you got there?
Okay, I flew over from on military airlift transfer mats, and we flew over to Okinawa and landed at Kadena Air Force Base, and I was put into a staging battalion where they assigned me to 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and upon reporting there at Camp Schwab, that we went to, I was further deployed into H&S Company and the 81s Platoon, 2nd Section. Gun 1, 2nd Section.
Gun 1.
Yeah, they're of 2, Gun 1 or Gun 2. And from there we boarded ship after we waited for Christmas to pass and New Year's. Well, we waited for Christmas to pass. We didn't get to New Year's. The day after Christmas, we boarded the ship, the USS Valley Forge, and we went for training to the Philippines. And
So this was Christmas of
specifically
65.
Subic Bay. This is Christmas of '65, and we're en route to Subic Bay to go for some jungle training to adapt us to the climate of Vietnam. Well, there I should footnote that we tore apart the Hilltop Club, and the battalion commander had to get us all in because they gave us liberty, and we weren't allowed to go out to Olongapo, so we ended up tearing up the Hilltop Club. I mean, there wasn't 2 pieces of lumber put that signified that it ever stood there.
What was the Hilltop Club?
Oh, it was a enlisted / NCO club where they served beer to 17, 18-year-old troops.
And so you just unhappily ripped it to
We
shreds.
unhappily tore the place apart because
Was there any repercussions from that?
Oh yeah, the CO got us in rank, the whole battalion in rank the next day, and just read us the riot act for 30 minutes. And then at the end of it, he said, and another thing, when you're standing at attention, listening to me, by God, you will weave in order.
Weave.
We were weaving back and forth for the drunken stupor that we were in the night before.
It sounds like you had fun doing that, though.
Well, you know, ironically, I wasn't even involved in the tearing apart. I had fire watch duty, and I was walking up and down the rows of tents in a place called Andersonville, appropriately named.
Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah. And I sat there and watched the whole thing from the side of the hill, you know, kind of elevated slightly above it, you know, and it was something else.
How many men were involved in taking this thing
there was
apart?
at least somewhere between 12 to 1,400 men.
Oh my. So after you were trained in jungle training in the Philippines, then what happened?
We went to well, we were supposed to go, and the Navy was really angry at us because we were the Valley Forge was not allowed into the port of Hong Kong, where they were supposed to go for additional liberty. And so we went straight to the South China Sea and to Da Nang, and to, offshore of Tam Key, where we debarked on Operation Double Eagle, approximately the 26th or 28th of January, 1966.
And that's a well-known operation. It was the largest.
It was the second operation. It was supposed to be one of the largest, but Starlight actually started it up. Operation Starlight. Tam Key was the second operation in the Republic of Vietnam, and it was supposed to be big. I can't tell you how big it was because we were a floating battalion, VLT, Battalion Landing Team.
VLT.
And so there, as such, we were taken out of 3rd Marine Division and put in with the elements of the 1st Marine Division to land in and around Tam Key.
Where is Tam Key? Is that?
It's a little bit south of Da Nang, probably in the Chu Lai area.
Is it right on the coast or is it inland?
It's near the coast. Near the coast.
Were you told anything?
It later became a renowned helicopter port. But then it was just being built. In those days it was just being constructed. It was still under construction, and although they were landing helicopters there, it was kind of infrequent.
What were you told about this
operation? Well, this operation was to seek out and destroy enemy forces in a region inland or west of Tam Key, and we were to seek them out and destroy them. It was a search and destroy operation.
Did all the men seem very fired up about this? Or were they anxious? What was the mood?
I would say anxious was the mood. Very quiet, not a whole lot of talking going on, just kind of staring out into space. You know, kind of like similar to what you see on TV, but I wouldn't say with the fear factor in there. We're just kind of anticipating what we didn't know was going to happen would happen. I say that because a lot of us were brand new to Vietnam. There'd only been one group over there before us, and they were still there.
Wow.
So we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
And when you got there, what did you think of the country initially? Was it beautiful? Was it hot? What did you think of Vietnam?
Well, several things came to mind. One, it was miserable. It was miserably hot. The temperatures range from 86 to well over 100 in the summer, but the humidity was 100% humidity, and it just sapped the strength right out of you.
Wow.
And nothing flat. I mean, you just perspired prolifically, and it just never stopped. I mean, even in the middle of the night, while you're laying there trying to sleep, you're sweating. The country had the most beautiful sunrises and sunsets that I've ever seen in my life. It was almost looking at a surrealistic picture or portrait. It's just the best that I've ever seen ever in any place that I've ever been. The other thing that I noticed, it was like going back at least a century or two in time, because the equipment that they used to plow the fields for the rice paddies was so antiquated. It was pathetic. I mean, it was just if you can imagine a bamboo platform strapped behind a big ox, or water buffalo as we conveniently called them.
Yeah.
And they would stand on this platform of bamboo, and it was kind of knit together with manila hemp rope. And the plowshare going through the middle of it was another piece of bamboo going in at about a 45-degree angle. And they would ride on the top of this thing, and usually the first son would ride on the top in back of the antlers of the water buffalo.
Wow. No iron plows, bamboo plows.
No, no iron, hardly anything. I mean, that's what I noticed about the country. The people were poor. They didn't have a whole lot of clothing. They didn't have a whole lot of food. They relied on the rice that they planted, and maybe some other implements that they could procure with by trading rice for other items.
Yeah. Let me ask you a little more personal question about your views on the war. When you were being trained to go over there, did you believe that you were doing something for your country, or did you feel like this was a job that you had, or an adventure? What did you feel politically about the situation?
I was really naive and young, and I just felt, you know, my country is calling me. It's my duty to go, and that's the way I felt about it. I didn't have any political agenda. I had no idea that they were looking for whatever they were looking for over there. I understand it was copper and rubber, but you know, when I got over there and when I seen the deplorable condition that the people were in, the people just kind of stuck to my heart, you know, and I just seen them, you know, brutalized and terrorized by the communists, and sometimes it was more horrible than I care to even discuss.
Yeah. So you saw that happening? Was it?
No, I didn't see it happen. I saw the results of it, the aftermath, if I seen anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your time over there. Like, what happened in the battles that you were involved in? I know it's a lot to cover. You have many service medals here.
Yeah.
Combat Action Ribbon, Presidential Unit Citation, Good Conduct Ribbon, National Defense Ribbon or Medal.
Service Medal.
Service Medal, am I saying that correctly? And many more.
Yeah, the Republic of Vietnam Meritorious Unit Citation, the first one listed, Gallantry Cross with palm. That's equivalent to the Navy Star. That's the second highest ribbon that a person can get awarded in the United States. That's equivalent to that.
Wow. And I know sometimes it's difficult for people to talk about why they receive these, but could you tell us what happened over there? Because we'd like to know. Our generation, this generation, does not know anything about.
There were several things that happened over there. I guess I can start on Double Eagle and tell you that when we finished, we went on an operation on Double Eagle, and we were supposed to go half a battalion strong. We were supposed to go through this valley that no foreign troops had ever been in, ever. And we were supposed to sweep through this valley and come out a roundabout in a kind of a circuitous route, and back to this landing strip that we had secured in the process. And when we got into that valley, we got ambushed by a force that was, by a Viet Cong force that was significantly larger than anything we'd ever encountered. Now this is right after the Ayadrang incident where the 7th Army the 7th Cavalry Army unit got bushwhacked in the Ayadrang Valley in November. About the same situation, except slightly different. And like I said, we were probably about half a battalion strength, maybe about 800 or 900 men, and we're walking through this valley. And about dusk, they hit us hard with just about everything they could throw at us. And looking around, I should say at this point in time, being a mortarman, I am back with the CP group. I'm not up with the line infantry, who are right in front of me, probably about 20 to maybe 30 yards away, which isn't far as the bullet flies. So we were all nestled down in the high grass around a big tree, where the CP group, where the colonel, the chaplain, the corpsman, and the wounded were taken as soon as we could get them out of the line of fire. And our job there as mortarmen, because we couldn't get the tubes up yet, that word hadn't come forward, hadn't been spoken to us by the battalion commander to get the gun up. So we formed a last line of defense around the CP group, and I was looking up and out over the top, and I determined, that there were just too many of these enemy to take with all the stuff that we had. First thought. Second thought, which probably occurred in probably a New York second, was I better fix bayonets because I can't shoot because I got my troops in front of me. So I reached into my cartridge belt and fixed bayonets. I heard this clicking noise going on all around me, and I turned and looked to my right and left, and everyone else was fixing bayonets. They knew that this was some pretty hairy stuff we were into, and it was gonna take an act of God to get us out of. Well, I guess God was on our side, because they never broke the ranks. They never broke through. They never got through to where we had to go out and stick them and drag them in. But and we managed to find a way out, a way that they had not covered, and it was up a hill, up a goat path, up a hill, kind of went switchback up this hill, and then it dropped into this valley, and we kind of escaped that night out that way, that direction. And our intention was to form up with the rest of the battalion to bring the fight to them at full battalion strength, which came on the next day, probably about 12-ish, sometime between 12 and 1 o'clock. Went on for a couple hours, and they hit us hard, and they still couldn't break our lines, even though they shot a Marine down on the banks down below where we were. We were in a raised platform area for this landing strip that we were on, and of course, being on the mortars, we were on the edge of the landing strip, and also, because it was flat and made for laying a gun pit for a mortar a lot easier, we built the gun pits, and we had the mortar in there. And being an ammo carrier, I jumped into the gun pit, and I was ripping the tapes off of the canisters so I could pull the rounds out, and so somebody could fix the increments or the charges. And I'm going down and coming up and looking at the front of me, at the sandbags in front of me, and wondering what in the heck was these puffs of smoke on the sandbags.
Oh my gosh.
And after several shots at me, this gunnery sergeant said, well, I can't tell you what he said, but I can clean it up. Smeltzer, get your butt down. They're trying to kill you. And so I dropped in the gun pit, and I'm thinking, I'm just laying there, my heart is pounding, and I'm thinking, well, this is war.
Oh,
This is war, I could get killed, you know?
Oh.
And all of a sudden, I hear this rocket go off, because it makes an eerie sound, this whoosh, kaboom. And I'm looking at this, the very tip top of this tree, and it just lit up like a Roman candle. And I hear this cheering going on. Had no idea what was going on. The sniper had taken several shots at me and missed, which is unusual because he didn't miss the Marine down on the bank. He didn't miss the corpsman who went to help him. He didn't miss the lieutenant that went to help the corpsman. And then there was another corpsman that went to assist all three of them. I don't know what happened to him, because at that point in time the conversation shifted to a rocket squad who's seen this rifle pointing around this big tree about halfway up to take shots at me. And I didn't tell him that I was the one he was taking shots at, but I know it was because of the puffs of smoke going up on the sandbag and the gunnery sergeant yelling at me. You know. And so anyway, the rocket squad lit up that tree and says, well, how do we get this guy? And the rockets say, well, how about if I put an armor piercing on this puppy, and we'll just take out the whole tree? And they said, you're on. And so they did.
So that was a different kind of load that they put in.
Oh yeah.
Into the rocket
Armor
launcher.
piercing is, it'll go through I don't know how many inches of homogeneous steel, and it went through that tree just like butter. So that's what they did, and they got this guy and took him off of firing at all of our troops. His job was to pick us off one by one.
I'm very glad that you survived that.
So that was my introduction to the war. Well, my introduction to the war actually came earlier, jumping off the helicopter, which I incidentally was pushed out. I was going to step down on the skid, and from the skid onto the ground, you know, but I never got that far, because the next thing I know, I was pushed out, and all of a sudden I was going face first to the ground, and I started rolling because I had 4 or 5 mortar rounds on me, which weighed about 25 to 28 pounds apiece, and on my 150-pound body it was just like a counterweight. And I would roll, and then it would roll, and then I would roll, and it would roll. And the lieutenant was running by me and said, "Smeltzer, get up."
Was this happening on the way to this
And
campaign?
this is just happening.
Did you get
and
there
we
by
had all kinds
helicopter?
of shooting and yelling and stuff going on. And we had all these people in black silk pajamas and these bamboo cone hats standing around, you know, and some of them were in groups and some of them were alone. And the first thing I noticed when I finally put my arm out and stopped this rolling thing, and my eyes are spinning around in my head, and I couldn't focus on nothing. I couldn't focus on nothing in front of me. The green was just all green. And Thurman was a machine gunner, and he had the machine gun, and I heard the machine gun go ka-chunk, and I knew what happened. He had forgot to shove the operating rod lever forward on the machine gun, so when he pulled the trigger, he broke the firing pin. And I knew what that sound was. I knew what it sounded like. So I finally focused, and what I focused on is this female in black pajamas and this bamboo cone hat at me with a hand grenade in her hand, and I flipped off my safety, and I was gonna do her, you know, and all of a sudden this lieutenant walks in front of my gun and says, "Cease fire, cease fire," and she was yelling, "Chew hoy, chew hoy." Well, no one told me what that meant. That means I surrender, I give up. But no one told me at that time what that meant. I had no idea what that meant.
Didn't she have a...
She had a hand grenade in her hand, what looked like a hand grenade. So the lieutenant takes the grenade away from her, throws it in the bushes in back of her, yells out, "Fire in the hole." It gets down, And it turns out to be a hand illumination grenade because all it did was light up, exploded and lit up.
Those are used to mark.
But I had no
positions.
idea. I had no idea what she had, because a hand grenade and a hand illume look the same in a hand.
Wow. Wow.
So that was my introduction to Vietnam.
Wow. What other battles were you? I know there's so many.
There's so many of them.
Pick something for us.
Let me fast forward to almost a year later, maybe a little over a year later.
And just to clarify, you were there for 2 tours?
I was there for 1 tour. They were asking who wanted to volunteer for a 6-month extension. Because it was early in my enlistment, I decided to take the 6-month extension. The 6-month extension included with it a free 30-day leave to wherever you wanted to go in the world. And I chose to go home, and I went home for 30 days, and that was, I flew out of Vietnam December 17th, 1966, and came back January 28th. Was back in the field the 28th of January, 1967. Now, over the time that it transpired, I had been promoted to Lance Corporal, from PFC to Lance Corporal, due to the fact that they needed me in 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, because I was school trained in the 81mm mortar. And my position there was to go in as a squad leader.
Do you want to take a break and drink some water?
Yeah, probably should.
We could take a break.
Get a glass of
Taking a
water.
break.
Throat's getting a little bit dry.
Yeah.